Amy Thompson woke up to the sound of birds singing outside her bedroom window. The 8-year-old girl stretched and yawned, looking forward to another day on New Eden. She had lived on this beautiful planet her whole life. The colony was her home, and she could not imagine living anywhere else. New Eden was a special place. Golden wheat fields stretched as far as the eye could see. Crystal clear rivers ran through green valleys. Mountains touched the clouds in the distance. The air smelled fresh and clean. For 15 years, human families had built their lives here. They grew crops, raised children, and created a peaceful community far from Earth. Amy's father, Pete Thompson, worked in the wheat fields. Her mother, Linda Thompson, taught at the local school. Their house sat on a small hill overlooking the main town. From her window, Amy could see other families starting their day. Children played in the streets. Adults walked to work. Everything seemed normal and perfect. In the colony administration building, Jack Morrison sat at his desk reviewing daily reports. Jack was 55 years old and had been running New Eden for the past 10 years. Before coming to the colony, he had served in Earth's military for 25 years. He had seen wars and conflicts across the galaxy. But on New Eden, he had found peace. Jack loved his job. Every morning, he read reports from the farming sectors, the schools, the medical centers, and the security teams. Today's reports showed everything was running smoothly. Crop yields were excellent. No medical emergencies. Crime was almost zero. The 2.3 million people living on New Eden were happy and safe. 300 light-years away, in Earth's colonial administration building, Maria Rodriguez noticed something strange. Maria worked in the communications department. Her job was to monitor contact with all human colonies across the galaxy. Every day, colonies sent routine reports about their status. New Eden always sent their report at exactly 0800 Earth Standard Time. Today, the report was late. Maria checked her equipment. Everything worked fine. She tried to contact New Eden directly. The communication signal went out into space, but no answer came back. This was unusual. New Eden's communication system was brand new and very reliable. Maybe it's just a small problem, Maria thought. They'll probably contact us soon. But hours passed, and still no word from New Eden. Maria reported the problem to her supervisor, Captain Bob Williams. Bob had worked in colonial communications for 15 years. He had seen technical problems before. Usually they were simple fixes. Could be solar interference, Bob said. The Kepler 442 system sometimes has solar storms. Let's wait another day. But one day became 2 days. Then 3 days. Then a whole week passed with no word from New Eden. The silence was becoming frightening. Admiral Lisa Carter commanded the Third Fleet, which patrolled the space around New Eden. Her fleet had 12 ships that protected several human colonies in the region. When she heard about the communication blackout, she felt worried. Lisa had been in the Space Navy for 20 years. She had learned to trust her instincts. Something felt very wrong about this situation. New Eden was too important and too well equipped to just go silent for a week. We need to check on them, Lisa told her staff. Send the Horizon to investigate. The Horizon was a fast reconnaissance ship designed for scouting missions. Captain Rick Palmer commanded the ship with a crew of 12 experienced officers and enlisted personnel. Rick was 38 years old and had been exploring unknown space for most of his career. Rick and his crew prepared for what they thought would be a routine mission. They expected to find broken communication equipment or maybe some kind of technical malfunction. They loaded repair supplies and extra communication gear. The journey to New Eden took 2 days at maximum hyperspace speed. As the Horizon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler 442 system, Rick and his crew looked forward to solving a simple problem and returning home. But their sensors immediately detected something terrible. "Captain," said Lieutenant Karen Davis, the ship's sensor operator, "I'm not reading any communication signals from the planet. No radio traffic, no computer networks, nothing." Rick felt his stomach drop. A planet with 2.3 million people should be buzzing with electronic activity. The silence was completely unnatural. "Take us closer," Rick ordered. Scan everything. As the horizon moved toward New Eden, the full horror became clear. The beautiful planet that Amy Thompson had called home was gone. In its place was a world of glass and ash. The golden wheat fields had been burned to nothing. The crystal-clear rivers had been boiled away. The mountains were cracked and broken. Cities had become huge craters in the ground. The orbital space. Stations were twisted pieces of metal floating in space. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the ship's science officer, ran scan after scan. His face grew pale as he read the results. "Captain," Kevin said quietly, "the entire planet has been hit with plasma bombardment. The surface temperature reached over 3,000 degrees. Nothing could have survived." Rick stared at the screen, showing what remained of New Eden. This had been a living world full of families, children, hopes, and dreams. Now it was a dead rock floating in space. "Any survivors?" Rick asked, though he already knew the answer. "None, sir. The attack was complete and thorough. Whoever did this wanted to make sure no human lived." The crew of the Horizon worked in shocked silence as they gathered evidence. Security cameras on a damaged satellite had recorded the attack. The footage showed 15 strange ships with smooth, crystalline hulls. They bore markings that matched only one known alien species, the Zaphirian collective. Humans had met the Zaphirians only twice before. Both meetings had been peaceful diplomatic exchanges. The aliens had seemed curious about humanity but not hostile. They had advanced technology but had shown no interest in human territory. Now they had committed the worst crime possible. They had murdered an entire human colony. Rick recorded everything and prepared his report for Earth. As he began the long journey home, he could not imagine that his message would change human history forever. Captain Rick Palmer's message reached Earth like a lightning bolt. The hyperspace communication arrived at the Colonial Administration Building at 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. The night shift operator Tony Martinez read the first few lines and immediately called his supervisor. Within 30 minutes, the message was on President Daniel Hayes's desk. Daniel had been president of Earth for 6 years. He had dealt with many crises before, but nothing like this. As he read Rick's report, his hands began to shake. 3 million people. Gone. Murdered. An entire world turned to glass and ash. Daniel immediately called an emergency meeting of the Terran Defense Council. The council was made up of Earth's most important military and political leaders. They met in a secure room deep underground beneath the Capitol building. General Patricia Stone was the first to arrive. Patricia was 60 years old and had been Supreme Commander of Terran forces for 8 years. She was a tough woman who had fought in 3 major conflicts. But when she saw the images from New Eden on the large screen, even she felt sick. Tatisor. Orbital photos showed everything. Playground equipment melted into twisted metal. Schools reduced to smoking holes. Hospitals completely destroyed. Entire neighborhoods wiped off the map. Children's toys scattered and burned. Admiral Marcus Webb arrived next. Marcus was 72 years old and had spent his entire life in space. He had overseen humanity's expansion to the stars for 40 years. He had seen wars, accidents, and disasters. But this was different. This was intentional murder on a scale he had never imagined. One by one, the other council members arrived. Defense Minister Carol Johnson, Intelligence Director Steve Adams, Colonial Administrator Helen Foster. Each person who entered the room looked at the screen and felt the same shock and anger. President Hayes called the meeting to order at 6 a.m. His voice was steady, but everyone could see the rage in his eyes. "You have all seen the evidence," Daniel said. "New Eden is gone. Every man, woman, and child has been killed. The Zaphirian collective did this." General Stone stood up and activated the tactical display. A map of human space appeared showing all the colonies and their defenses. "Mr. President," Patricia said, "this was not a random attack. The Zaphirians chose New Eden carefully. It was far from our main fleet bases. It had only light defenses. They wanted to test our response." "What do we know about their capabilities?" asked Defense Minister Johnson. Intelligence Director Adams pulled up files on the Zaphirian collective. We have very little information. We've only met them twice before in peaceful contact. They have advanced plasma weapons and energy shields. Their ships are fast and maneuverable, but we don't know how many ships they have or where their main bases are located. Admiral Webb studied the tactical data. The attack force used 15 ships to destroy an entire planet. That suggests very powerful weapons. They completed the attack in less than 6 hours and then disappeared. The room was quiet for a moment as everyone absorbed this information. Colonial Administrator Foster spoke up. Sir, I recommend we try diplomatic contact first. Maybe this was a misunderstanding. Maybe we can negotiate. Several council members nodded in agreement. Diplomacy was always the preferred solution. But General Stone shook her head firmly. With respect, this was not a misunderstanding. Look at these images again. They didn't just attack military targets. They systematically killed every civilian, every child. This was genocide. President Hayes activated another screen. It showed testimonies from the survivors of New Eden. These were people who had been off-world when the attack happened. Business travelers, students studying on other planets, and workers on space stations. One survivor was Jake Miller, whose wife and 3 children had been on New Eden when it was destroyed. Jake spoke through tears as he described his family. His wife Mary had been a nurse. His daughter Sue was only 5 years old. His twin sons Tom and Bill were 7. They were having breakfast when it happened, Jake said. Mary sent me a message that morning saying the kids were excited about their school field trip. That was the last time I heard from them. Another survivor was Dr. Nancy Clark. She had been attending a medical conference on Mars when New Eden was attacked. Her parents, her brother, and her sister had all lived in the colony's main city. My family moved to New Eden to escape the wars and conflicts of Earth, Nancy said. They wanted peace. They wanted to grow old watching their grandchildren play in safe streets. Instead, they died screaming as their world burned. The testimonies continued for 2 hours. Each story was heartbreaking. Families destroyed. Lives ended. Dreams turned to ash. As the last testimony ended, the council room was completely silent. Some members had tears in their eyes. Others sat with clenched fists. Admiral Webb, the oldest member of the council, slowly stood up. His weathered face showed the weight of 40 years defending human colonies. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but firm. Mr. President, Marcus said, I have spent my entire life trying to avoid wars. I have always believed that peace was better than conflict. But there are some lines that, once crossed, demand absolute response. He gestured toward the screen showing the destroyed planet. They did not attack our military. They did not demand territory or resources. They murdered innocent families to send us a message about their power. They have declared war on our very existence. If we do not respond with overwhelming force, they will do this again, and again, and again. The room erupted in discussion. Some members still argued for diplomatic solutions. Others called for limited military action. But as the debate continued, the photos of New Eden remained on the screen. The images of dead children and destroyed homes made their point without words. Defense Minister Johnson stood up. How many ships can we mobilize? General Stone checked her computer pad. If we activate all reserves and recall all fleets, we can assemble approximately 700,000 combat vessels. Several council members gasped. That was every ship in the human fleet. Every destroyer, cruiser, battleship, and carrier. Every reserve vessel in storage. Every auxiliary ship that could mount weapons. That would leave Earth and our other colonies completely undefended, warned Intelligence Director Adams. Admiral Webb looked around the room. Good. Let them see that we are willing to risk everything to answer this crime. Let every alien species in the galaxy understand what happens when you murder human children. President Hayes called for a vote. The question was simple. Authorize the mobilization of the entire human fleet for immediate deployment against the Zaphirian collective. The vote was unanimous. 27 members of the Terran Defense Council all voted yes. President Hayes signed Executive Order 2387 at 2:15 p.m. Earth Standard Time. The order had a simple title: Operation Righteous Thunder. Within hours, mobilization orders went out across human space. Every ship captain, every fleet commander, every naval base received the same message. Report for immediate deployment. Maximum weapons load. No prisoners. The largest military mobilization in human history had begun. The mobilization order reached every corner of human space within 12 hours. From the busy shipyards around Mars to the lonely frontier bases beyond Proxima Centauri, every naval facility received the same urgent message. Every ship that could mount weapons was ordered to report to Vanguard Station immediately. Captain Jennifer Hayes was eating lunch aboard her heavy cruiser Vengeance when the order arrived. Jennifer was 34 years old and had commanded the Vengeance for 3 years. Her ship was patrolling the outer colonies when the communication came through. "Ma'am," said Lieutenant Paul Davis, her communications officer, "we just received flash priority orders from Earth Command." Jennifer read the message twice to make sure she understood it correctly. Every human warship was being called to assemble at Vanguard Station. The reason was simple: the complete destruction of the Zaphirian collective. "Set course for Vanguard Station," Jennifer ordered. "Maximum hyperspace speed." Similar scenes played out on hundreds of thousands of ships across human space. Captains changed course immediately. Shore leaves were canceled. Crews worked around the clock to prepare their vessels for war. At the Mars Naval Shipyard, Admiral Chris Johnson received orders to bring every ship under construction to Vanguard Station, even if they were not finished. Civilian contractors worked day and night to install weapons on ships that had never been designed to fight. The cargo ship Hercules had been carrying grain to the outer colonies. Within 6 hours, construction crews had welded missile launchers to its hull and painted military markings on its sides. The luxury passenger liner Golden Star was converted into a troop transport. Even old mining ships were fitted with weapons and given military crews. Vanguard Station sat at the edge of human space. It was normally a quiet refueling stop for ships heading to the frontier. The station had been built to handle maybe 50 ships at one time. Now it faced the impossible task of organizing 700,000 vessels. Station Commander Jake Wilson watched in amazement as ships began arriving. The first vessels appeared on his sensors as tiny dots. Within days, those dots became a river of ships. Then the river became a flood. "Sir," said his traffic control officer Lisa Park, "we have ships arriving faster than we can process them. The parking orbits are completely full." Jake had never seen anything like it. Ancient destroyers that had been in storage for 50 years flew alongside brand new battleships fresh from the shipyards. Massive dreadnoughts longer than city blocks moved next to tiny corvettes that could barely carry 20 crew members. The diversity was incredible. Ships from every human colony arrived, with their crews ready to fight. The crew of the destroyer Phoenix came from the farming world of Harvest Moon. They were mostly farmers and mechanics who had joined the Naval Reserve to serve their community. Now they were preparing for the largest battle in human history. Commander Ryan Foster brought his patrol ship Ranger from the frontier territories. Ryan was 45 years old and had spent most of his career chasing pirates and smugglers. His crew was tough and experienced in real combat. They knew how to fight. Dirty and Win Admiral Michelle Adams arrived with the 4th Battle Group, which specialized in siege warfare. Michelle's ships carried the most powerful weapons in the human fleet. Some of her vessels mounted planet-cracking missiles that had never been used in actual combat. These weapons had been built as a last resort, but now they might be needed. General Patricia Stone arrived at Vanguard Station to take overall command of the massive fleet. She established her headquarters aboard the super dreadnought Righteous Fury, the largest warship ever built by humans. The ship was 3 kilometers long and carried enough firepower to destroy an entire enemy fleet by itself. Patricia divided the enormous fleet into 7 battle groups. Each group had a specific mission and was commanded by humanity's most experienced officers. The first assault group would break through enemy defenses. The second group would provide fire support. The third group would hunt down fleeing enemy ships. The logistics of organizing 700,000 ships was a nightmare. They needed fuel, ammunition, food, and spare parts. Supply ships worked around the clock to keep the fleet ready. Tanker ships refueled the warships. Ammunition ships loaded missiles and energy cells. Hospital ships prepared for casualties. Dr. Sarah Kim arrived as the fleet's chief science officer. Sarah had studied alien technology for 15 years. She knew more about the Zaphirian collective than almost any other human. Her job was to find weaknesses in enemy ships and weapons. Their hulls are made of crystalline material, Sarah explained to the fleet commanders. This makes them very strong but also brittle. High-frequency weapons should be able to shatter their armor. Their shields are powerful but require a lot of energy. If we can overload them with sustained fire, they will collapse. The intelligence was encouraging, but everyone knew the real advantage was numbers. The humans might not have the most advanced technology, but they had quantity, lots of quantity. Former pirates who had accepted amnesty worked alongside career naval officers. Veterans of forgotten wars trained new recruits who had never seen combat. Engineers who usually fixed civilian ships learned how to repair battle damage. Doctors prepared for wounds they had only read about in medical books. The preparation took 6 months. Every day more ships arrived at Vanguard Station. The fleet grew from hundreds to thousands to hundreds of thousands. The space around the station became crowded with vessels of every size and type. Captain Jennifer Hayes watched the fleet grow from the bridge of her cruiser. She had served in the Navy for 12 years, but she had never imagined seeing so many human ships in one place. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. "Ma'am," said her executive officer, Commander Bill Turner. "Final count from Fleet Headquarters. We now have 697,439 combat vessels ready for deployment." Jennifer nodded. In a few more days, they would have the full 700,000 ships that President Hayes had promised. Then they would jump to Zaphirian space and deliver humanity's answer to the murder of New Eden. Admiral Stone's voice came over the fleet communication system. Her words reached every ship and every crew member in the massive armada. "Warriors of humanity," she said. "In 3 days we will depart for Zaphirian space. Our mission is simple. Complete destruction of the species that murdered 2.3 million innocent humans. They wanted to send us a message with their attack on New Eden. Now we will send them our reply." She paused for a moment, letting her words sink in. "They destroyed one human colony. 700,000 warships is our response. Let every alien species in the galaxy remember this moment. Let them understand what happens when you wage war against humanity." The fleet was ready. The largest military force in human history prepared to deliver justice for New Eden. The Zaphirian collective had no idea what was coming. Their early warning systems were designed to detect normal enemy fleets of maybe 100 ships at most. When 700,000 human vessels dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Zaphirian territory, their sensors simply could not process the information. Fleet Admiral Patricia Stone stood on the bridge of her flagship Righteous Fury and watched the deployment unfold. The massive human armada spread across space like a metal cloud. Ships stretched from horizon to horizon in every direction. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. "All battle groups report ready for combat," announced Captain Tom Miller, her fleet operations officer. Patricia nodded. "Signal all ships. Operation Righteous Thunder is now active. Begin the advance." The first contact happened at Kepler 7, a mining system on the edge of Zaphirian space. The aliens had a small defensive fleet station there. 80 crystalline ships moved to intercept what they thought was a standard human retaliation force. Commander Ashley Price led the human scouting group. Ashley was 29 years old and commanded a fast attack squadron. She had been chosen for this mission because of her aggressive fighting style. Her orders were simple: destroy everything that moved. "Contact," reported her sensor officer. 80 enemy ships approaching at high speed. Ashley smiled grimly. The Zaphirians were about to get their first surprise. "Signal the fleet," she ordered. "All ships open fire when ready." The Zaphirian commander probably expected to fight a few dozen human ships. Instead, he faced 5,000 vessels that opened fire simultaneously. The space around Kepler-7 lit up with weapons fire. Human missiles streaked through space in massive waves. Energy beams from thousands of ships focused on the crystalline vessels. The Zaphirian shields, which had seemed so powerful at New Eden, collapsed under the sheer volume of incoming fire. The battle lasted exactly 14 minutes. When it ended, all 80 Zaphirian ships were destroyed. The human fleet had lost only 3 vessels, and those were damaged by debris from exploding enemy ships. Ashley watched the last enemy ship break apart and reported back to Admiral Stone. Kepler-7 is secure, enemy fleet completely destroyed. We are ready to advance. The news spread through the human fleet like wildfire. The Zaphirians could be beaten. Their advanced technology was useless against overwhelming numbers. Admiral Chris Johnson led the first assault group deeper into Zaphirian space. Chris was 52 years old and had fought in more battles than any other human commander. His 150,000 ships moved like a steel avalanche, crushing everything in their path. The next target was Zephyr Beta, a heavily fortified world that served as a major military base. The planet was surrounded by defensive platforms that had been built over centuries. Massive weapons installations covered the surface. The Zaphirians considered it impossible to conquer. The human fleet arrived and proved them wrong. 50,000 ships prepare for planetary assault, Chris ordered. Target all defensive platforms. Fire when ready. The bombardment that followed was unlike anything ever seen in galactic history. 50,000 human warships fired at the same time. The space around Zephyr Beta turned into a storm of explosions and energy beams. The Zaphirian defensive platforms tried to fight back. Their plasma weapons were powerful and accurate, but they were designed to fight conventional fleets, not an armada of 50,000 ships. For every shot they fired, the humans fired 1,000. The battle lasted 3 days. The human fleet rotated their ships in shifts, keeping up constant pressure. Tired crews were replaced by fresh ones. Empty ammunition ships were replaced by full ones. The bombardment never stopped. On the 3rd day, the last Zaphirian defensive platform exploded. The planet's surface was cratered and burning. The once mighty fortress world had been reduced to rubble. But the most devastating blow came from Captain Alex Brown and his Special Operations Wing. Alex was a former intelligence officer who understood the importance of communication in warfare. His mission was to cut off the Zaphirian ability to coordinate their scattered fleets. Alex led 30,000 fast attack ships in a lightning assault on Nexus Station, the main communication hub for the entire Zaphirian collective. The station was hidden in an asteroid field and protected by automated defenses. Remember, Alex told his captains, we need to destroy that station completely. If even one communication relay survives, they can still coordinate their fleets. The human ships approached the asteroid field from multiple directions. Zaphirian automated guns opened fire, but they were overwhelmed by the number of targets. Alex's ships weaved through the asteroids, using them as cover while they closed in on the station. The final assault took only 20 minutes. Nexus Station, which had served as the nerve center of Zaphirian space for over 1,000 years, was blown to pieces. With it died the aliens' ability to communicate across their empire. The psychological effect was immediate and devastating. Zaphirian commanders throughout their territory found themselves cut off from their government. They could not coordinate attacks or share information about human movements. Each fleet was fighting alone. Captain Lisa Martinez commanded the battleship, New Eden's Revenge. Her ship had been named specifically for this mission. The names of all 2.3 million victims from the destroyed colony were painted on the hull in small letters. It took up the entire side of the ship. Lisa's job was to hunt down fleeing Zaphirian ships. Her battle group specialized in high-speed pursuit. They chased down alien vessels that tried to escape to other systems. Contact bearing 270, reported her navigation officer. Single Zaphirian cruiser attempting to flee to hyperspace. Intercept course, Lisa ordered. All ships, prepare to engage. The Zaphirian ship was fast, but it was alone. Lisa's battle group had 500 vessels. The enemy captain tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Human ships surrounded him from all directions. The fight was over in minutes. Another Zaphirian ship became space debris. Similar battles were happening throughout Zaphirian space. Isolated enemy commanders found themselves facing human forces that outnumbered them by hundreds to one. Some tried to fight. Others tried to surrender. Most just tried to run. But there was nowhere to run. The human fleet was everywhere. Admiral Stone received reports from all 7 battle groups. The news was the same everywhere. Complete human victory. Zaphirian fleets were being destroyed faster than they could retreat. Military bases were falling one after another. The alien government tried desperately to rally their forces, but without communication, they could not coordinate any effective resistance. Their empire was collapsing system by system. "Admiral," reported her intelligence officer, "we have intercepted Zaphirian communications. They are in complete panic. Their government is requesting emergency sessions. Some of their colonies are already trying to surrender." Patricia looked at the tactical display showing human fleets advancing through Zaphirian space. Red dots marked destroyed enemy positions. Green dots showed human victories. The map was mostly green now. "Signal all battle groups," she ordered. "Continue the advance. Our target is still Zephr Prime. We will not stop until we reach their homeworld." The largest fleet in human history pressed forward, carrying the rage and determination of an entire species. The Zaphirians had wanted to test human resolve by destroying New Eden. Now they were learning the price of that test. Behind the advancing fleets, Zaphirian space burned. 1 year after the destruction of New Eden, the human fleet arrived at Zephr Prime. The Zaphirian homeworld was a beautiful crystal sphere orbiting a bright blue star. For thousands of years, it had been the center of an advanced civilization. Today it would become the site of their final judgment. Admiral Patricia Stone stood on the bridge of her flagship and studied the enemy defenses. Even after months of devastating defeats, the Zaphirians had managed to gather their remaining forces here. Nearly 2,000 ships formed defensive lines around their homeworld. Massive orbital platforms bristled with weapons. Automated defense networks created a deadly web around the planet. "It's impressive," admitted Captain Tom Miller, her operations officer. "They've concentrated everything they have left." Patricia nodded. The Zaphirians were making their last stand. Their backs were against the wall and desperate enemies were always dangerous, but humanity had come too far to stop now. "Signal all battle groups," Patricia ordered. "Deploy for final assault, 200,000 ships in the first wave." The number was staggering. The Zaphirians had gathered 2,000 vessels to defend their most important world. The humans were attacking with 200,000 ships in just the first wave. They had another 500,000 ships in reserve. Captain Lisa Martinez prepared her battleship New Eden's Revenge for the final battle. Lisa looked at the names painted on her ship's hull. 2.3 million victims from the destroyed colony. Men, women, and children who had died for no reason except alien arrogance. "This is for Amy Thompson," Lisa whispered, remembering the 8-year-old girl who had loved the golden wheat fields of New Eden. "This is for all of them." The battle began at exactly noon, Zephr Prime local time. The human fleet advanced in perfect formation. Zaphirian plasma beams reached out across space, destroying human ships with precise shots. But for every human vessel that died, 10 more took its place. The space around Zephr Prime became a storm of fire and metal. Zaphirian weapons were more advanced, but human numbers were overwhelming. The aliens could destroy hundreds of human ships, but they faced thousands more. Commander Jake Wilson led a squadron of converted cargo ships into the battle. His vessels had been grain haulers just 6 months ago. Now they carried enough missiles to level a city. Jake's crews were mostly civilian volunteers who had joined the fleet to avenge New Eden. "All ships target the orbital platforms," Jake ordered. "Fire everything we have." The converted cargo ships released their missiles in massive waves. Thousands of projectiles streaked toward the Zaphirian defenses. The alien platforms tried to shoot down the incoming weapons, but there were too many. Explosions lit up the darkness as one platform after another was destroyed. The Zaphirian fleet tried to break through the human lines. Their crystalline ships were fast and maneuverable. They used hit-and-run tactics, striking at human formations and then retreating. But every time they attacked, more human ships arrived to replace the damaged ones. Admiral Chris Johnson commanded the heavy assault group. His massive battleships carried the most powerful weapons in the human fleet. These were the ships designed to break through any defense. "Target the enemy command ship," Chris ordered. "All heavy units concentrate fire." The Zaphirian flagship was a magnificent vessel covered in crystal formations that sparkled like diamonds. It had led their fleet to victory in a dozen wars against other alien species. But it had never faced anything like this. 50 human battleships fired at the same time. Energy beams and kinetic projectiles hammered the enemy flagship from all directions. The crystalline hull cracked and shattered. The beautiful ship broke apart in a brilliant explosion. With their flagship destroyed, the Zaphirian defense began to crumble. Their formations scattered. Some ships tried to retreat to the planet's surface. Others attempted to flee to hyperspace. But human vessels were everywhere, cutting off every escape route. Captain Alex Brown led his fast attack ships in pursuit of fleeing enemies. Alex had spent months hunting Zaphirian vessels throughout their territory. He knew their tactics and their weaknesses. "No one escapes," Alex told his squadron. "Every ship that participated in their war crimes must be destroyed." The hunt continued for hours. Human ships chased Zaphirian vessels through asteroid fields and around the planets' moons. One by one, the alien ships were cornered and destroyed. The proud Zaphirian fleet was being wiped from existence. As the last orbital platform exploded, the Zaphirian government realized their situation was hopeless. Their entire military had been destroyed. Their homeworld was defenseless. The largest fleet in galactic history surrounded their planet like a metal noose. The emergency transmission came from the planetary surface. It was broadcast on all frequencies so every human ship could hear it. "Human fleet, this is Supreme Chancellor Vextar of the Zaphirian Collective," the message began. The alien voice was filled with fear and desperation. "We request immediate ceasefire. We wish to negotiate terms of surrender." Admiral Stone listened to the transmission from her flagship. Around her, the bridge crew waited for her response. Everyone knew this moment would decide the fate of an entire species. "We did not understand the consequences of our actions," the Zaphirian leader continued. "The attack on your colony called New Eden was intended as a demonstration of our power. We sought to establish our dominance in this region of space. We never intended to provoke such an overwhelming response." Patricia thought about the 2.3 million people who had died on New Eden. Families having breakfast when the bombs fell. Children playing in parks when the world burned. Innocent people who had never hurt anyone, murdered to make a political point. She opened a channel to broadcast her response to both fleets. "Supreme Chancellor Vextar," Patricia said, her voice cold and hard. "You murdered 2.3 million innocent people to demonstrate your power. Today, you have learned that humanity's power is demonstrated with 700,000 warships." She paused, letting her words echo across space. "Your fleet is destroyed. Your defenses are gone. Your homeworld is at our mercy. You will surrender unconditionally, or you will share the fate of New Eden." The Zaphirian response came quickly. "We accept unconditional surrender. Please, we ask for mercy." Admiral Stone considered the request. Part of her wanted to give the order to destroy Zephr Prime. It would be justice for New Eden. But she remembered the words of President Hayes. Humanity must be better than its enemies. "These are our terms," Patricia announced. "All remaining Zaphirian military vessels will be surrendered immediately. All weapons of mass destruction will be destroyed under human supervision. Your government will pay reparations to the survivors of New Eden for the next 100 years. Your military will be disbanded and rebuilt under human oversight. Any future aggression against human colonies will result in the complete destruction of your species." The terms were harsh, but not genocidal. The Zaphirian collective would survive, but they would never again threaten human worlds. Over the following weeks, 200,000 Zaphirian prisoners of war were processed by human ships. The complete technological database of their civilization was copied and transmitted to Earth. Their weapons were destroyed. Their warships were scrapped. Most importantly, every surviving Zaphirian was required to watch recordings of life on New Eden before its destruction. They saw children playing in parks, families eating dinner together, people working and laughing and living peaceful lives. Then they saw what those same places looked like after the attack. Glass craters where schools had been. Melted playgrounds, where children had played. The complete and total destruction of 2.3 million innocent lives. As the great human fleet began its journey home, Admiral Stone reflected on what they had accomplished. Humanity had proven its strength beyond any doubt. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species that answered the destruction of one colony with the mobilization of 700,000 warships. The message was clear to every alien civilization. Humanity could be peaceful neighbors or devastating enemies. The choice would always be theirs to make, but they would never again mistake human mercy for human weakness.